Finance Minister Ken Ofori-Atta is expected to present the mid-year budget review and supplementary estimates next month. According to the Majority Leader Oseche Mensabun, the Finance Minister will use the opportunity to explain how government intends to replenish advances it took from the contingency and stabilization funds due to the coronavirus pandemic. Addressing the press, he added that the Finance Minister will also use the opportunity to explain how government intends to pay back the 10 billion cedis borrowed from the central bank.
This meeting would also witness the Finance Minister submitting a mid-year review, and of course, given what is happening, I believe necessarily he will come with supplementary estimates. There are two supplementary estimates that the minister will be required to submit. One relates to the budget performance, and if he needs additional funding, he will be required to submit supplementary estimates after the mid-year review. So that's the first. But you recollect that the minister had come to Parliament and indeed requested through the Finance Committee for advances to be made to the ministry from the contingency fund. First of all, we took some amount from the stabilization fund to the contingency fund, and then the minister then made a request through the Finance Committee for advances to be made to the ministry, which was done when Parliament's meeting was suspended. Now, the Constitution provides that in Article 177(2), where an advance is made from the contingency fund, a supplementary estimate shall be presented as soon as possible to Parliament for the purpose of replacing the amount so advanced. So if you take monies from the contingency fund, you're supposed to submit a supplementary estimate to indicate how you intend to replenish that stock. The contingency fund contained nothing, and it's because Parliament was not insistent on this. The previous administration needed to take some amounts when petroleum funds, petroleum revenues dwindled. After we had approved of a budget, they needed to take some amount from the contingency fund, which was done, but it was not replenished. We need now, two wrongs would not make right. So we need now, going forward, to ensure that once Parliament, through the Finance Committee, allows monies or advances to be made from the contingency fund, for the finance ministers to show us how they intend to replenish the stock. It may not be necessarily, the stock replenishment may not necessarily be for a year. That come and show me how you're going to replenish the stock within 1 year. It cannot be done, because if it could be done, they will not take the money from the contingency fund in the first place. What it will mean is to show an indication, maybe over a period, 5-year period, 10-year period, whatever it is, for you to, let us know how you intend to replenish the stock.
Professor Godfred Walpin is an economist, and he joins me on Zoom for more on this. Prof, thanks so much for your time this evening. You heard the Majority Leader. Clearly, he's given us some hints about what we should expect when the Finance Minister appears before Parliament. Indeed, difficult times for government. What should be the tone of the Finance Minister?
Very much for this opportunity, and good evening to our cherished listeners and viewers. I think that the expectations are very high, largely because this will be the first major important government statement on COVID-19 and its impact. It is common knowledge today or now that the 2020 budget, the assumptions underlying that budget, and for that matter, the budget outcomes are no longer reliable. In November last year, when the budget was presented, the assumptions have drifted largely because of COVID-19. We had a first glimpse of a government understanding of the impact of COVID-19 when the finance minister made a statement in Parliament on the 30th of March. So, but then again, others have called for actually a revised budget to be presented comprehensively. Of course, that was a bit early or premature. So the media review gives government the opportunity to actually fully recalibrate the macro numbers to reflect the reality and the impact of COVID-19 in terms of the projections that were made in the 2020 budget would have to be revised, and that is expected. And then again, the outlook for the next, maybe the medium-term outlook, maybe the next 3 years, the next 5 years, government will have to provide a roadmap, which will also guide private sector, which will guide individuals. So again, so specifically, when it comes to the GDP numbers, we are told from the statement the finance minister made in Parliament on the 30th of March that our GDP will decelerate sharply from the 6.8% projected in the 2020 budget to about 1.5% in a worst-case scenario, given the partial lockdown of Greater Accra and Greater Kumasi. So I think this is an opportunity for the minister to come clear. And then we also have a fair idea now in terms of the impact of COVID-19 on government revenue envelope in terms of the fiscal losses. But it will not be all losses because the impact of COVID-19 is not all losses. So given the lockdown, the travel ban, and all of that, government now has an opportunity to tell us the savings that will be made from the lack of travels, lack of conferences, per diems, and all of that. So some savings would have been made, obviously. Then we also get to understand through the media review the new expenditure patterns that are emerging because of COVID-19, more health-related, and then other expenditure patterns that would have emerged because of COVID-19, the switch to online and all of that. Beyond that, we also get to know a little bit more about the financing mechanism that government has put in place, including the quantitative easing from Bank of Ghana. That would also be very important. Then government will have to be clear more inclusively in terms of the impact of COVID-19 on our deficit position, fiscal deficit position, and then our debt stock. In this case, it will not make much sense to do a dual reporting of looking at the deficit with and without. I think we have to be embracive, and we have to report an inclusive deficit that gives us overall picture of the impact of COVID-19. Then more importantly, it gives the government the opportunity to lay out its recovery plan and what the priority areas are in leading the recovery plan. And here, there's no point in hyping the expectation because we know that we are not expecting a quick V-shaped recovery, perhaps a little bit of an extended U-shaped recovery. So we are expecting not less than 3 years if we are looking at the recovery and even getting to pre-pandemic level. So that would have to be done. Then the other issue that will have to come to mind is that it calls for re-examination of our strategy so that we zoom more into the knowledge economy and because COVID-19 has fast-tracked the arrival of the fourth industrial revolution predicated on network readiness. So the usage of ICT would have to be prominent, and government will have to be clear in terms of policy statement on going forward in scaling up the digital literacy of our youth and all of that.
Well said. I think you've put everything into context for us, but obviously we are not in normal times. We've heard that over and over again, and from your submission as well. We are going to obviously spend more. What will be the greater picture, the impact on our end-of-year fiscal deficits, bearing in mind that the first quarter growth now is gone by some 4.9%, and we are being told that we shouldn't expect much in your submission as well. And so what's the impact on our end-of-year fiscal deficits, bearing in mind all these issues with COVID-19?
So what is going to happen is that, and here the issue is not to blame government because these are exogenous beyond our control. So we expect that our fiscal deficit would increase from the projected deficit in the 2020 budget. But of course, the statement made in Parliament gives us a fair idea of the elevated fiscal deficit position, because the deficit now has increased from the 18.9 billion in the 2020 budget preliminary to 30.2 billion per the statement the finance minister made. This is expected to increase a bit because of the impact. Even though the lockdown has been lifted, we are not seeing that activities have returned to pre-pandemic level. People are still cautious in approaching in terms of the day-to-day interaction that we see here and there. Then again, it's going to impact our debt stock. That is obvious. But the good news this year is that because the cedi has been relatively stable, the extent to which the depreciation of the cedi adds to our debt stock will be smaller than last year. Because last year, the depreciation of the cedi alone added approximately 15 billion cedis to our debt stock, because the cedi depreciated against the major trading currencies, largely the dollar. Because if you look at the composition of our public debt stock, the external debt, majority of them are denominated in dollars. Then you can talk about pounds, euros, and the rest of them. So that can be a bit minimal. But then, of course, when it comes to the elevated fiscal deficit, then that can go up a bit. And then the financing arrangement from Bank of Ghana. Then remember, government made an important out-of-budget statement about the 94 hospitals. Okay. Right. Yes, and therefore it is expected that a little bit more information will be given on this. But my suggestion, my humble suggestion to government is that we need to strike a delicate balance between the elevated pressures, health spending pressures, as against other critical sectors of the economy like agriculture, because we are not only in health crisis. Okay, and if you look at the April and May inflation, driven largely by food inflation and a reflection of the global disruption to the global supply chain, because import has gone down, and then the restrictions in terms of the local economy, travel network to move food from the farmlands to where our mouth is, we've seen inflation heading up. So it will be important for government to strike a good balance between agriculture spending along the entire value chain, because we have decided, we moved away from just containing the pandemic. Our strategy now is that we have decided to live with the virus. Then in that case, like the president said, boosting our immune system is the way to go. And boosting the immune system does not depend solely on health spending. And therefore, a balanced budgetary allocation to both health and agriculture, because if you are talking about people eating well, contombre, and the things that the president talked about, this is certainly not health. This is agriculture. So we need to do it in such a way that we are able to prevent deaths that will come as a result of that hunger and malnutrition rather than the virus. Because if we are not careful, we are likely to run into a situation where hunger perhaps will kill more people than the virus itself.
Well said, Professor Godfrey Bokpin is an economist. I am particularly waiting to see or to hear from the finance minister how much we saved on those travels and conferences. I'm grateful for your time this evening.